Hi everybody, it's Melissa from the Glendale Public Library's main branch, here to do another teen story time. I am going to be reading just a little bit from this book, Book of a Thousand Days by Shannon Hale. It's one of my favorite books. It features a very strong, lovely young woman named Dashti, and it's written by one of my favorite authors as well. So Shannon Hale's amazing. It is based off of an obscure Brothers Grimm fairy tale called Maid, but I like this version better. It's not quite as grim as the Grimms. But I'm going to read a little bit to you about Dashti, who is a servant, a maid, to Lady Saren, and they are both trapped in a tower. So let's get started, shall we? This is a book of thoughts kept by Dashti, a mucker and a lady's maid, containing an account of our 7 years in the tower and our adventure thereafter. Part 1. The Tower. Day 1. My lady and I are being shut up in a tower for 7 years. Lady Saren is sitting on the floor, staring at the wall, and hasn't moved even to scratch for an hour or more. Poor thing. It's a shame I don't have fresh yak dung or anything strong-smelling to scare the misery out of her. The men are bricking up the door, and I hear them muttering and scraping cement. Only a small square of unbricked sky and light still gape at me. I smile back at its mean grin to show I'm not scared. Isn't it something, all the trouble they're going to for us? I feel like a jewel in a treasure box. Though my lady is the... My lady suddenly awoke from her stupor and sprang at the door, clawing at the bricks, trying to shove her way out. How she screamed! Like an angry piglet. "Stay in," we heard her honored father say. He must have been standing near the opening. "Stay until your heart softens like long-boiled potatoes. And if you try to break your way out, I told the guards to kill you on sight. You have 7 years to think about your disobedience. Until you are meek with regret, your face turns my stomach." I nearly warned him that such words would bring him bad luck and canker his own heart. Thank the ancestors that my lady's fit stopped me from speaking out of turn. When I pulled her back, her hands were red from beating at the bricks and streaked with wet cement. This isn't exactly a happy celebration morning, but I don't see what good it does to thrash about. "Easy, my lady," I said, the way I'd speak to a feisty ram. It wasn't too hard to hold my lady back, even squirming as she was. I'm 15 years, and though skinny as a skinned hare, I'm strong as a yak, or so my mama used to say. I sang the calming song, the one that goes, "Oh, moth on a wind, oh, leaf on a stream," and invites the hearer into dreaming. I feared my lady was so angry she wouldn't heed the song, but she must have been eager to sleep, because now she's snoring on my lap. Happily, the brush and ink are at hand, so I keep writing. When you can't move, there isn't much to do but think, and I don't much want to think right now. I'm going to skip ahead a little bit to day 11. It occurs to me I ought to relate the why behind our imprisonment, and at the moment, with dinner eaten and cleaned up, washing done, and my lady resting, I've nothing more to do but stare at the candle flame. It tosses and bobs like a spring foal, and sometimes I find myself staring at it so long, the flame is all I can see for an hour after. But now, all right. I came to the city of Tyder's Garden only 1 year ago. My mother, the ancestors bless her, died from the floating fevers that take people in the summer. I was alone. My father dead when I was a baby, and my brothers gone to make their world way when I was a girl of 8 and still in 2 braids. I wear 1 braid now, though still long down my back. My lady wears her braid pinned up, though she's not married and just 1 year older than me. I suppose she has the right to do her hair how she pleases, her being gentry and all. Anyway, with my mother past the ancestors' realm, I made the long walk from the summer pastures to the city, hoping to find work. The city had too many people for my mind. Where do they all sleep? How do you feed so many bodies? My head hurt trying to reason it out. I found the House of Chiefs soon enough and purchased employment with my last animal. A thin woman people named Mistress had me standing before her and tell her what skills I had, declaring at the end that I would be of best use working in the stables. When she rose from her chair to show me the way, she winced and rubbed at her back. Have a pain there, mistress? I asked. She didn't answer. I suppose it was right nosy of me to speak up like that, but I thought I could help her, and why sit quiet when you can be useful? So I said, I might help that pain, mistress, if you let me. She didn't argue, so I put my hand on her back and I started with a song for body aches, the slow, sliding tune that goes, Tell me again, how does it go? And then twined it into the hopping tune for buried pain that goes, Berries in summer, red, purple, green. She stretched when I was finished. You're a mucker, then. I've heard of the healing songs, but never thought much about them. She looked at me thoughtfully, then set in on any number of queer questions. What is the proper remedy for a lady in fits? Make her drink warm milk and rub her back, I answered easily enough. Show me a straight stitch. And I sewed a line straighter than the figure of Risk, god of roads and towns. Let me see your hands, she said, and checked them for calluses. And your mucker mother taught you all the healing songs? I don't think a body can know them all, but I know the useful ones, like the song for helping a mare birth a foal, and the song to get a she-yak to stand still for milking. No, I had no use for horses and yaks. The songs for aches and bellies, and pains and heads, like you just sang me. I know dozens, I guess. Then I'm going to make you a lady's maid for the most honored house in Tyder's garden. Our Lord's second daughter, Lady Saren, she's bound to need a fresh maid by the time your education is done. She certainly seems to go through them quickly. Mistress sent me to an old man named Kadan, who lived beside the House of Chiefs. I cooked and cleaned for him, and in the afternoons, a group of hopeful scribes joined us for lessons in reading. As Lady Saren's maid, you'll need to know your letters, Mistress had said. I didn't know then why this is so, but I do now, because unlike most gentry, Lady Saren herself doesn't know them. What a strange and wondrous time it was, eating 2 big meals every single day, sleeping by a fire always lit, and learning the secret language of ink and strokes. On days when I finished chores and errands early, Kadan taught me sketching. I was so busy and my belly so full I would fall asleep even as I was falling into bed. But some nights, when I tossed on my mattress awake and staring at nothing, the sorrow would strike me. Quiet there in Kadan's dark house, my heartache felt like a river, and I was sinking into it, carried away fast in its coldness. That's the best way I can explain it. And what I mean by it is, I missed my mama. Sometimes Kadan threw candlesticks at us when his back pinched him sour, but mostly he was a good teacher. He said the best way to practice writing was to keep a book of thoughts. The first one I wrote in was left behind in our rush to this prison. I found this blank book of stitched-together pages among the parchment and inks, and I asked my lady if I might take it for my own. She had no use for it. It seems a bit of a laugh now, all that time spent learning, and now I find myself in a tower with no occasion to write my lady's love letters or keep her books. Instead, I'll record the details of our confinement. So when the 7 years are over and the lordsmen pound through the walls, if all they find is delicate lady and her humble maid shriveled like old ginger roots from lack of sun and air, they'll know somewhat of our happy time still breathing. Though my lady doesn't sound happy, she's thrashing on her mattress again. I wonder, is it in the gentry's nature to suffer so? Could the ancestors give gentry beauty and perfection, food and large houses, and a world to do their bidding, and yet curse them with wretched sorrow? My poor, poor lady. I had best go see to her now and finish my account later. There will be, I'd guess, plenty of time to do so. Sorry. Day 13. While I was washing up tonight, my lady fell asleep on my mattress, not wanting to climb to her chamber. She wears fashionable shoes with the toe long and curled toward her ankle, which are certainly pretty, but do make it difficult to clamber up ladders. It wouldn't be proper for me to sleep on her mattress, so I'll finish my story before making a bed of the grain sacks in the cellar. The ancestors bless her. After yet 1 year with Kadan, Mistress had me take the oath of a lady's maid. I cut my finger, splashed drops of blood toward the north and the sacred mountain, and swore to serve the gentry and my new mistress, however the ancestors saw fit. But I'm still a mucker, right? I asked. You'll always be a mucker, said Mistress. I was relieved. I know muckers are the simplest of commoners, and becoming a lady's maid is a right honor, but I couldn't give up the wild steps forever. I couldn't turn my back on Mama and all she taught. I feel like a mucker from the ends of my hair to the mud of my shoes. Whoops, sorry, from the mud of my to the mud of my bones. And after the oath, mistress escorted me to the city center and left me at the Lord's house. It was near as beautiful as a mountain in autumn, with its three-tiered roof covered in red and green enamel tiles. Inside was less welcoming, grand and cold. The floor stone seemingly cut from ice. Everyone was running around. Women were wailing, men were yelling. At the time, I thought it was always that way. I hadn't heard yet of the trouble. Hours I spent sitting in a corner, waiting for someone to be sensible. I could see myself in a mirror, and I stared and thought how plain I looked in my mucker boots and working clothes inside a gentry's house as fine as sugar. But no one paid me the least mind, and though it wasn't proper, I decided I'd find my new mistress myself. Ancestors forgive me. But what else could I do? I was of no use to anyone just sitting there. Errand boys rushed up and down the corridors. Maidens sulked on benches. Some wept. When I asked for directions to Lady Saren's chamber, no one questioned why I was there. I entered the chamber slowly, squinting. I'd never met any gentry before and was worried that the glory of the ancestors might be so bright inside her it would burn my eyes. I was a little disappointed then to find my lady looking much like anyone else, still in her white sleep clothes, her hair in a braid with half the hair poking out. Her eyes were puffy and red, her nose wet, her feet bare. She sat on her bed alone, straight as a tent pole. The first thing I wanted to do was comb her hair straight and plait it tight, dress her and set her up like a proper lady. Let the glory of her divine ancestors shine in her properly. But I had to stand there, quiet, and wait for her to look up and see me. It isn't allowed for a commoner, of course, to speak to gentry first. The flats of my feet were aching by the time she saw, and in all that time she hadn't moved. "Who are you?" she asked. There was something about her manner that reminded me of a little girl, though I learned since that she's 16 years. "My lady, I'm Dashti. I'm your new maid." "You can't be. They're all hiding from me because they don't want—" She considered me. "What is your name?" "Dashti, my lady," I told her again. She hopped off her bed and grabbed my wrist, but tight. Her swiftness and force startled me. "Swear you'll serve me, Dashti. Swear you won't abandon me. Swear it!" "Of course, my lady, I swear." I didn't know why she grabbed me and yelled. I'd already taken the oath and learned to write letters and everything. "All right," she said, wandering through the room as if looking for something. "All right, then." I led her back to the bed and had her sit while I combed the muddle of her hair and bound it in a braid, every hair crisscrossing so the smarts wouldn't wander out of her head. She scarcely moved as I washed her face and hands and underarms and feet. I looked in her wardrobe for clothing and found 24 deals. They were like the long-sleeve robes over tunic and trousers that any commoner wears, but they resembled my own deal as much as a worm resembles a snake. Before coming to the city, the only cloth I'd seen was leather, fur, or felt. Kadan taught me the names of other cloths: brocade, satin, damask, silk. My lady had them all, I dare guess, and embroidered and fine, layers stitched upon each other, trimmed and as colorful as a summer sunset. You must think I fib, claiming any person could have such clothes and so many, but I swear by the 8 ancestors that I speak the truth. When she was dressed and combed and cleaned, the beauty that is Lady Saren really began to show, and I think she felt it too. Once she even said, "Thank you, Dashti." Those words made me feel combed and cleaned myself. Then her honor father entered, and she stiffened and began to whimper as if fighting off a fit of sobs. He had one crooked leg. This surprised me, fit to staring. I don't mean disrespect, but I'd always thought that gentry would be formed and perfect of limb, lovely and radiant, being the offspring of the ancestors. But truth be, if her father had worn common clothing, I might have thought him a mucker. Either the ancestors went it this way, or else Under, god of tricks, was deceiving my eyes. "Still bleeding about it, are you?" said her honored father. He was a man too small for his voice. "Tighter and his dogs, girl. It's your mess. Crying about it's like rolling around in your own filth." He watched her for a moment, and I swear by Tighter and his dogs that there was a touch of sympathy in his eyes. I'd have sworn it on my mother's memory till he up and slapped her in the face. It didn't make sense, as though he slapped her more from duty than anger. Mama used to say, hitting is the language of cowards and drunkards. And here a member of the honored gentry struck his daughter for crying. "What's this thing here?" he asked, looking at me now, taking in my rough boots, my wool deal, my leather sash. "Why is one of your maids dressed as a mucker? Are you a mucker? Answer me, girl." I answered him. "Yes, my lord. I was born on the steppes, and when I came to my lord's city last year, That's enough. I don't want the whole story. You're nothing to look at, are you?" I thought that was a useless question. I'm right aware of the red birth splotches on my face and arm, not to mention my dull hair and lips thinner than the edge of a leaf. Mama said that beauty is a curse for muckers. She once told me about Bayar, her clan sister who looked like a Vela, goddess of sunlight. And what happened to Bayar? A lord fell for her beauty, got her with child, then left both girl and baby in the mud, and never returned. That's gentry's right, I guess, but it was a bit hard on Bayar. "I remember now," my lady's father said with a humph. "Mistress told we said some mucker girl was coming from Kadans. What a hell you walked into, though it can't be worse than your own home. Muckers survive on grass alone, just like sheep, isn't that right?" "Well, my lord," I said, not sure how to contradict Gentry, he slapped his daughter's face again, suddenly, and with no cause, like a snake striking. The sound of her cry was sharp and sad enough to break a bird's wing. It was then that I began to understand my lady. I think she must have lost her mother long ago, before she was old enough to learn how to comfort herself. "There she goes again," he said, his big voice booming out of his small head. "She'd gone quiet, and I've grown accustomed to her crying. Bawl all you want, wench. No one will hear you alone in the tower." At that, she forced her tears to stop and looked right back at him, as brave as anything I've seen. "I won't be alone," she said. "My new maid is coming with me." "Is that what you think?" He was rummaging through her wardrobe, pulling deals from their hooks and tossing them onto the floor. "You don't deserve a maid. I won't force one to attend you, so let me hear the maid say she's willing to go." My lady was clinging to my arm. "Go where?" I asked. Her father laughed. "Now I understand." He took hold of one of the deals and ripped the sleeves off. "I, her honored father, have arranged an enviable match with Lord Khazar. He is the Lord of Thoughts of Under, the most powerful of the 8 realms. And does my daughter thank me and appreciate her responsibility to form this alliance? No! She declares she's promised herself to Contigus of the Lesser Realms song for Evella. She refuses to marry Lord Khazar. How's that for gratitude? I'm sending her to a watchtower shut up as a prison, and we'll see if 7 years beneath bricks won't kill her rebellion. So, say it, mucker girl. Will you lock yourself up with this disobedient child?" My lady was squeezing my arm so tightly now my fingers felt cold. One of her cheeks was pink from his slap, her brown eyes red from crying. She reminded me of a lamb just tumbled out, wet all over, unsure of her feet and suspicious of the sun. I'd sworn to serve my mistress, and now that her hair was fixed and her face was washed, I saw just how lovely she was, the glory of the ancestors shining through her. I felt certain that Lady Saren would never disobey her father lightly. Surely she had a wise and profound reason for stubbornness, one blessed by the ancestors. "Yes," I said, "I'll stay with my lady." Then her father up and slapped me across the mouth. It almost made me laugh. Go ahead and pick up Book of 1,000 Days to find out how Dashti's story ends, and we'll see you at the library. Bye.